Antonia Campbell-Hughes, welcome to An Actor Spares. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being on. I such a big fan of your work. I love Cordelia. It's an awesome film. And the fact that you co-wrote or adapted the script, is that how that worked?
So the writer director Adrian Shergold, he's kind of like he's a very respected like national treasure almost in the British film industry, and so he's been around for a long time, and most actors really adore him. So I had been directed by him in a TV show called My
Okay.
Mother and Other Strangers. It was like a BBC period piece, and so I met him on that. And in the duration of that, we have this sort of like kismic connection, I suppose. Is that right? Kismet.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, just go for it.
that one, a sparkle. And so in the midst of shooting, he kind of took me aside one day and said, I have this project, that a script that he'd written many years ago, and would I be interested in looking at it? And I kind of went, why? In what?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, just have a look at it, just have a look. And he knew that I've been writing for years. I've been writing as long as I've been acting, kind of, you know, screenplays and development, Screen Ireland. So he sent it to me and he gave it to me, and we met with the idea that I would play Cordelia. But because it had been written by him, and it was kind of, it was a very loose script. I mean, it was quite stream of consciousness, if you will.
Yeah.
And it was like a kind of, he's very interesting because he had written it sort of as his, some of his personal experiences with creative license
Hmm.
through a female character's journey. And so he really wanted me to put my stamp on it if I was to play the role. So I went away and I did another pass on it, and
Yeah.
very much kind of infused my own voice and what I thought, to make it much more a woman's journey.
Yeah,
And then
totally.
and sort of modernized it a bit. But I think it's very much that's what I think is so interesting about the film, is it's kind of like a cross generational. There's like a traditional sort of almost 70s feel, which is where he comes from, and then sort of my career, I've been doing lots. I'm much more. My path has been like Euro co-productions, so that's kind of the marriage.
I love that. But let's build up back up to this, if you don't mind. Let's start from the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Northern Ireland, and I moved to Switzerland when I was 2.
Wow.
So I grew up mainly in Switzerland and Germany and the States.
Wow. Oh, so you grew up in the States as well.
Only like 3 years, from 5 to 8, in
Where?
Wilmington Square.
Wow, that's amazing. How did that happen?
It's my father's work.
Okay,
So,
cool. And then are your parents artists at all?
no, not at all. Not in
So
the slightest.
where did that bug start to infiltrate?
I don't know. I think it always seemed kind of inherent, but I think there is something. I mean, I've come across this with other actors as well. Sometimes we moved a lot, and um, it just seems a natural process to kind of live in concepts. I mean, that sounds very arty nonsense, but I kind of, you kind of, not that you recreate yourself, but you get the opportunity and the privilege to observe lots of different types of people, lots of different types of environments, and that kind of repurposing and observing different ways of life and different trajectories and narratives is very compelling to me.
I love that. That's amazing. And were you doing classes or like a conservatory of any kind?
No, so I moved to Dublin when I was 16, and I did my final year of school there. And I was kind of like, I was in punk bands. I was really into that sort of
That's
thing.
amazing. I love that. I'm a punk guy too, as you can
Oh, yeah,
maybe tell with
good,
this.
good, good. Yeah, yeah. I moved to Frankfurt when I was 11, and I sort of fell in with just a couple of kids that was into kind of I don't know. I mean, like from crass and conflict and exploited and all these
Yeah.
sort of bad. And it was not my time. I was like this little blonde girl, but for some reason that's what struck me.
Did you
And
wear the Doc Martens?
I mean, I had a mohawk, like
Oh, you went for it. I love it.
I mean, if you see those photographs. And so that was, I was like, this is where the truth of like passion and where, you know, real humanity lies, and where
Yeah.
there is diversity and people understand each other and there's kindness and understanding. And I really saw it as like a family, you know, and it's quite international, the punk world, as you know.
Yeah.
So and I was a child kind of really into that. And then I was in punk bands and I thought, well, that's what I want to do, but that's not really a job. So I went to art school, which is kind of the nearest thing.
Yeah. For what kind of art?
I went to just a fine art school. I went to one in Dublin, and then I transferred to New York, and I went to Parsons, and I got into fashion, weirdly.
Oh, cool. I went to NYU. So,
Did you? Okay,
right.
cool.
We were neighbors. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I saw you at Starbucks.
It wasn't a Starbucks.
Yeah. Yeah. But, so how was
but
that experience?
it was good, but I was very young. I was 17, and I think like Manhattan, 42nd Street is where Parsons was a bit full on at the time. So I went back to Ireland, and Dublin then really became my home. Like it was the first time I properly lived in an English speaking country, like properly. And I really, because my mother is Irish and I was born there, I felt like I really wanted to immerse into the ground, you know, like I really wanted to prove my Irish heritage and connect with it as a place.
And so, Irish heritage is what you would classify, like if you had to, you know, it seems like you're a citizen of the world, but if you had to say, you'd say you're Irish.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But it took a long time to get there, you know, because I went to schools where I had a very strong American accent as a child. And, you know, I was claiming to be Irish, but it sounded like I was, you know, like several generations back, whereas I was born there. So that's, yeah, but now very much strongly feel very Irish.
That's so beautiful. And then who, you know, I mean, obviously you're an artist, you know, through and through, and a screenwriter and an actress, but like, where did you said you started screenwriting at an early age. Where did the acting screenwriting path start to open itself to you?
So I was in fashion for a couple of years, and then when I was around 21, I'd always had an agent because I'd been street cast on Little Thing when I was 16. I then sort of got the bug. I don't know how that, I was in fashion, and in fashion, when you didn't have enough money to have like catwalk shows during Fashion Week, often like other creatives, photographers and stuff would collaborate and do conceptual video pieces. And in that process, I kind of got the bug properly, and went to London, got an agent. And I think I got a job quite quickly, and it happened to be comedy, British comedy, and in a TV series, like a BBC thing. And the wonderful thing about, I mean, my story is kind of like, whoa.
I love that though.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was very unexpected because I don't think I'd ever seen a British comedy series other than maybe Fawlty Towers in German, possibly.
Yeah. Was this before The Office, like Ricky Gervais's Office, or?
When would it have been? Maybe 2007?
Yeah, so that's probably right as it was getting adapted in America.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So then talk to me about this experience.
Well, I'm sure you know, like, you know, all the great comedians, they do tend to work with each other over and over. It's a repeat process. They tend to, like, sometimes they'll write, act, produce, you know, they kind of, people seem to be, so they wear many hats.
Yeah.
And so that job, I was really encouraged to write. Like, it was a British comedian called Jack D, and he really encouraged me to write, and they were supportive. And that kind of how it began. And so I was in comedy pretty much exclusively for the first 3 years of my acting. And then, I mean, I grew up really loving European art house cinema.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to stretch my limbs in that arena. So I stopped doing comedy.
Did you feel exhausted by it at the end? Because I know it can be stamina-wise quite intense and exhausting. Or,
Comedy.
yeah, just because you got to be on all the time,
Well, funnily enough, the first job I got was like the sitcom, I suppose it's called Lead Balloon, and it was often compared to Curb Your Enthusiasm because
Okay.
it is about a somewhat, it's about a man who's normally a stand-up, who does comedy, and Jet D is that in the UK. And but my character, I was playing his daughter, and she's very deadpan and very low energy. So
Yeah.
I just played this kind of disgruntled teen for 3 years of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great
That's
though. I mean, yeah.
And then I'm curious because, like, here in the States, I'd love for you to maybe be able to explain this, for some of the American audience listening, is that, like, in the way American acting works is like, it used to be that if you wanted to be a movie star, you would go to LA. And if you wanted to do theater and work possibly in other mediums, you would come to New York. And the Ireland, UK thing, what is there, because I know now the Irish film industry is booming, and maybe it didn't look like that at one point with war-torn Ireland in the 90s, but, what is it similar like that or not at all?
Well, I mean, I'm sure right now things will change again, the way things are.
Yeah,
But
touche.
when I started, it was very much you had to go to London, because Ireland was very specifically, I mean, even though they made wonderful films, it was before, like, it was before Game of Thrones and all that, which really put Ireland kind of on a global map, I think. And but Ireland was very much theater focused. And I loved cinema. And so it was that you had to go to London.
Wow.
I think now, especially in the past decade, things have become very global. People, now we have Zoom as anything, but you have Skype auditions and tests, and you can kind of be anywhere and nowhere at once.
Yeah,
But
it's so true. And how was it, coming to London? Did you have a support group or a friend, someone to help you kind of guide you through the London bureaucracy of acting, or were you just flying blind?
totally blind. I mean, it's funny. I think I met a casting director, and they asked me for a headshot, and I didn't know what a headshot was. So
I've been there, man.
no, it's so green. I
Yeah.
knew nothing. I mean, I'm quite different to actors, I suppose. Like when I was growing up, I didn't know that acting was a real job.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was something you could do, and I also, even at school, I did some theater productions, but I saw it for the confident, pretty kids, and I was punk. So that was awful.
You're stunning. Are you kidding me? Come on.
That's so sweet. But I was an awkward child, awkward person, but not to be complained about. But no, I think it's funny because it does come up sometimes. People say, "How do you get into the business?"
Yeah.
And I still couldn't really. I know other people have the thing you should do is find a good drama school because it definitely gives platform. I didn't. The cinema that I loved was when people were real and they were street cast and discovered.
Gaspar Noé kind of street cast, or
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like the New York vibes. I loved Harmony Korine and
Yeah, totally. I've been trying to get on his radar forever. Yeah.
That was kind of, that was always the sort of thing I really loved, and I still really appreciate it as an act. I love craft now, but truth and the kind of someone said to me once that I like the Bresson school of acting, which isn't, it's some actors find insulting, but it's kind of, you find the correct person to fit into the film, and you let them just be themselves, and the director positions them.
That's so beautiful. And this agent that you had, were you staying with them during all this?
When I first started acting?
No, in London, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I literally packed a little bag and went and rented a tiny little studio in Brick Lane, and I thought, I'll give it 2 months and see what happens. And then I got a comedy show.
Wow, that's amazing, Cordelia. That's so cool. And when the comedy show ended, do you feel, because like right now, I think we're seeing a real trend, like Britt Marling and, the
Yeah,
Duplass brothers of people that are creating their own thing. That your experience with that comedian who kind of taught you that, did that stay with you after you left the show? Did you keep writing?
I did. But weirdly, I kind of had learned, sort of self-taught, how to write for comedy. And again, it was a time when BBC was really good at sort of opening up and broadening, and they were commissioning all these little comedy pilots. And I mean, I did, there's some amazing actors that came from that world, like Dan Kaluuya. Do you know
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yeah, of course. I love him.
Yeah, I mean, I did this tiny little comedy pilot with him. Like, amazing actors came from that world initially. Dan as well. He wrote on Skins. It was like a British comedy, or not. It
Skins
wasn't
is
comedy.
one of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah, no,
Jack O'Connell and Nicholas Hoult. That was like their beginning. And
yeah,
and
exactly.
and and Kaya, right? Like all of them. That's amazing. I tell so many of my American friends to watch that show because I don't know if they adapted it in the States, and
Oh no,
it was horrible. It was so bad. So people think it's that one, and I'm like, no, 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 no.
really, that's so. I mean, yeah, because I remember but I think the beauty was in the casting of that. They found just these really special young people who kind of brought such life, and truth to what they were doing and the characters they were playing.
And
Yeah.
and I know we're jumping down the line a little bit, but I know you did Brightstar with Ben Whishaw. When I think Americans think of not London cinema per se, but like BBC, we think of period dramas. Was that something you were trying to kind of avoid, or did you just want to work?
Not at all. I mean, I love a good period drama. But
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
perfect.
yeah, but it's funny. Brightstar was a big thing for me. I was obviously a huge fan of Jane Campion, and it was a time when I was very much entrenched in comedy. And what I had seen was that, I was being asked to do comedy back to back and not really being seen as a dramatic actress. And I was very young, I guess, still at the time. And so Brightstar was quite, it was like a little window out into this world that I wanted to be in. And but yeah, the period drama that I've done, or the period pieces, like I did one, I was in one called Albert Nobbs. It was really special. It was Glenn Close. And I remember every day on set they said, "We are not making Downton Abbey."
That's
Between,
amazing.
I mean, it's Downton Abbey is a wonderful, wonderful world, and everyone adores it.
Yeah.
But it's clean.
Yeah.
And I really love period pieces where, in the times, people smelt quite bad, and,
Yeah.
they washed as frequently, and everything took a long time. And it's really nice when you watch a period piece where everything looks authentic rather than made by an art department, where it looks like the wood looks heavy and textured.
I mean, I could be wrong here, but something maybe like Peaky Blinders or.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that show is a really great balance of having such like action and grit.
Yeah.
It has a slightly modern feel. I mean, the music is very contemporary, and but it's very truthful as well.
Yeah. And before the rise of streaming in the States, the way it used to work is, we as actors, we would do some television to get the films. And is it work the same way in the UK? Obviously, now that's done. Now that streaming and all the greatest content is on the streamers, but when you were younger, was that the same trajectory you had to follow to get these credits to get the Bright Star movie,
I always thought that television and film were very separate camps.
Yeah.
It seemed to be that way. And I think kind of it still is. I mean, I've always seemed to be in the cinema camp. And, people always say you're as people remember you for the last work you've done. And it does seem to be, no matter how successful one is or how, vast your career is, that is kind of the path. And but and obviously there's such the quality of television is so great now that it is quite cinematic.
Yeah,
But I have a great love for cinema. I
me
really
too.
fly the flag for independent film,
Yeah,
and especially now, I think it's so important to
it's
keep,
imperative.
to
Yeah.
really for everybody to put effort and will and invest so much into that, because it could be a dying art form, unfortunately.
I just had this talk yesterday with some filmmakers. I'm curious to ask you, is the British independent scene hanging on, or is it fledgling like it is here in America? As globalization has made these Marvel movies, a global phenomenon, has it been the same experience there?
Well, specifically, I think that the past 3 months is going to be a big change.
Yeah.
That's where I put the question mark. I think over the past couple of years, um, the cinema world has been quite good because of co-productions. Europe, so many multi-language cinema, and European countries and foreign film having much more of a standing in our English-speaking territories, in the States and the UK, etc. They're no longer foreign films, but they are films that
Yeah.
we give, uh, we shine a light on. But with the current COVID crisis,
Yeah.
pandemic, etc., everything's in flux, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, just a really sad question mark about, I've had maybe 3 auditions since this pandemic has started. And,
Oh,
a lot of those productions even have question marks about, the union here is called SAG.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sorry, I mean, you lived here, but, SAG has had a standoff with all the other ones just because of the safety of it all, and the sheer amount of volume it takes, even on an indie
yeah.
set, and all the hands and all the different, I don't want to say touching, but intimacy.
It's really interesting because I'm very, very schooled in this, because during the lockdown time, I was due to start shooting my own film, directing it at the end of June. So obviously that was pushed, and now it's October. But the COVID protocols, I now feel it's like, I know them inside out. I had to do COVID pass. I'm fully aware of everything, and insurance and stuff that you never would have had to think about before.
It is in us all.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Cool. But before we get there, when you were in London for so long, it's hard not to ignore, the amazing theater scene there, or the indie theater scene at like Don Mar, and
Yeah.
all these other amazing places. Was stage something you were ever interested in?
Actually, when you asked me earlier about the kind of transition from like comedy to film, at that time, very specifically in London, there was this: if you didn't go to drama school, then you had to prove yourself through theatre. That
Yeah.
was very focused there, and I had done neither. So I was like, stay in comedy. That's the only place you can be. So I took myself off and I went to Dublin, and I did a play, a project called Roberta Succo. That
Yeah.
was with a very good cast. And I was, it was terrifying because, Dublin is really respected for its theatre. And I was absolutely like the BBC comedy moron. How dare I face the stage. And then I went and did, straight after that, I did a play at the Royal Court.
Wow.
And that was acceptable for them to be considered for a cinema at that point by casting directors, because there is that, there's like a certain level that you have to prove yourself.
And then I know you did Breakfast at Pluto. Someone like Cillian Murphy. I know he's a male, but was that a big influence on you?
That came about before I was ever an actor. So
Oh, that was the street cast that you talked about?
Yeah, no, I have been street casting something else before that when I was much younger. Well, around the same time, but I think Neil Jordan came across me sometime, and I looked quite punky actually, and he got my mobile number, like a little, like a little Nokia thing, and I got a phone call saying would I do this part, because they thought I'd be bold and daring, and I looked young, and they needed someone who looked like an underage 70s prostitute.
Sorry. Very
yeah,
specific. I love it.
yeah. And it was terrifying actually, but that was, I think, the first time I'd ever been in a film set, and I knew Killian a little bit. So that Dublin's very small. Everyone knows everyone, and so yeah, that was that. That was
I've always,
that.
I just always looked up to him because, you know, he always does great television, great film, and then always does really amazing plays. And I just had the chance about a year ago to see Grief is the Thing with Feathers. And
Oh wow, yeah, I haven't seen it. I heard it's
yeah,
incredible.
oh man, it was mind blowing. But let's continue on your path. You know, when you start getting more and more of these credits, and I believe Brightstar was nominated for an Oscar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Was it? I mean, what? Yeah, I think it was. It was a. Yeah, yes.
yeah,
Was it?
awesome.
Yeah.
When, you know, things like that start to happen, you know, I have a lot of mixed feelings about the awards, and, you know, because it's not necessarily always a meritocracy, and sometimes it can be very political, but it's an amazing film, and I'm not discounting that. But I'm curious to ask you, you know, when you have that kind of success and you're in a film of that caliber, I imagine you get to start being a little bit choosier about the work you're wanting to do.
I think that things like that just. I think what it does specifically is that people who love those kind of films, then you're seen by. It
Yeah,
just, you know, you're more kind of visible.
got it.
And that, I mean, you know, like I've casting is a very interesting thing, and it's just, it's very, sometimes, as much as we don't imagine it to be true, sometimes it's hard to find actors, you know. You So I think if you're a filmmaker and you're making a certain type of film, you look at the films that you respond to.
Yeah.
So being in, even though it's quite a small part in Brightstar, I suddenly was seen for things that I wanted to be in.
That's
What really made a difference, I suppose, to my career, sounds, I hate saying those
no, no,
sentences.
no, no, no. It's not pretentious at all. Please.
Well, after Brightstar, there was a little film financed by Screen Ireland at a time when they put quite a lot of money into things. I mean, it's low budget, but it was like 2 or 3 million. And it was a film I wanted badly. It was just very beautiful script. And I think I auditioned like 20 something times.
Wow.
And so the director really wanted to street cast somebody, and I worked hard to get that role. And it was very sort of immersive, and it's like one character's journey throughout. And then that film went to Cannes, and it played a director's fortnight, and it was received very well.
It
You know,
almost won the Palme d'Or, didn't it?
no, that was I think Brightstar was
Oh,
that.
Bright Star. Okay, sorry, I got it mixed up. Yeah, yeah,
It's just that really changed things for me, because then, you know, what followed from that were awards like the Berlinale Shooting Star Award, and, like, you know, the Screen Stars of Tomorrow, all those things
yeah,
that really they just help a lot.
yeah. They open doors for you, for producers and filmmakers that maybe don't know of you yet otherwise.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was very much where I wanted to be, because again, the Berlinale Award, it's very European, you know, it very much introduces you to a kind of European cinema arena.
And is that something, as you know, you said your mother's French?
No, she lives in France.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I asked that because you have both passports.
No, I just have a British and an Irish passport.
But British and Irish let you travel around the EU, even though they're not part, right? So
Yeah.
you could work in any country, right?
Yeah.
Did that start opening, you know, because like I know so many American projects started shooting in like Croatia and other
Yeah.
things like that. Like, talk to me, you know, I mean, obviously America is America, and, you know, popular culture here is what it is, but is there a moment with your team or with Antonia where you're like, I'd love to start doing some American projects?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in the States quite a few times, a fair bit, but you know, it's always been, again, it's always been little independent cinema, you know, films.
Yeah.
Never been, that's always been the thing. Like I did a very beautiful film called Split in New York. The director called Deborah Campmeyer with Morgan Spector.
Oh,
And
Morgan was on my show. Morgan's a friend.
I love him. He's wonderful.
Yeah, the best guy ever. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
but it was the nuttiest movie.
I'm sure.
Bananas.
Yeah.
Feminist film. You know, I mean, that's kind of what I've been doing. But yes. But I think that particular director, she's really special. She made a film many, many years ago. There's a Sundance with Dakota Fanning called Hound Dog, which is beautiful, and it got kind of it was received. I mean, it was very early Dakota Fanning. I think she was kind of a child, and it was questioned whether, you know, it was over sexualizing an underage actress, etc. But that seems. I mean, I've just, you know, I guess I've been lucky to always do interesting work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've worked really hard for it. And I'm curious then, you know, obviously Sally Hawkins executive produced Cordelia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said this filmmaker, you know, gave you the script to, you know, because he was interested in you and wanted your own kind of personal taste into the script.
Yeah.
I'm curious when you know, because that's very different than comedy. Where at this point, did you have experience writing dramas, or do you feel like because you had done so many films and worked with so many awesome filmmakers, that was sort of your film school, so to speak?
What, making Cordelia?
No. All the other work you did
Oh,
leading up to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing is, I've always felt that every single choice you make and every bit of work that's on your CV is who you are in the present. You know, I mean, like I have been on quite a number of sets. Like, you know, now that I'm starting to make my own films, you know, it came up where people were scrutinizing, like, how would you know how to direct or write? It's like, you, as an actor, you learn so much on set, and especially if they're sort of ever evolving and they're always changing.
Yeah.
You learn from every experience, and that's why I think Cordelia is really special. It was a very special experience making it, and it's a very special piece film, because it really is a marriage of two generations. Adrian's much older than me. You know, you can see the sort of cinema that he's grown up with and is very passionate about, and that's why he wanted to work with me. So he had initially, I think, sort of formulated it, is that right word?
Yeah.
With Sally. Initially, they're very close, and that was a while, and then that kind of passed on, and I knew Sally as well a bit, and it was like I was handed over the chalice.
That's amazing. It's
yeah.
one of the reoccurring things I talk about on this podcast is like the difference between good acting and great acting. And you're a great actress because no other actress, and I don't know how you feel about that word. I don't like it because I think it, like, you know, pits us against each other. No other actor in the world could have played that role the way you did. And I think it was just such a beautiful performance. And I you know, I think my favorite films leave you with questions more than they do answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I walked out of that film with some like really interesting. I don't want to say since American Psycho, there have been others like The Machinist, who's also starring Christian Bale, but it was a very interesting film. And I'm curious, you know, when you did your pass, was Sally pretty hands off, or did she?
Completely, yes.
That's amazing.
No. I mean, she very much like. I just left it with Adrian to give her blessing. Firstly, you know, because you feel like you're stepping in someone's shoes a bit. It lived with her for a while, and she absolutely did.
Yeah.
And yeah, we shot most of it in Twickenham Studios, and she came a couple of times. And yeah, it was lovely. But yeah, very hands off.
Yeah. And how was working with Johnny?
Great. It's the second time I worked with Johnny. So we did a film together that went Tribeca, like I think in 2012, called Lotus Eaters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this funny little black one. And so Alexander, who directed that, is a very close friend of mine and colleague. We work together all the time. So Johnny, I think, had been doing exclusively music up to that point. Like he'd stopped acting. He'd been a child actor, I think, or something. And then, so Lotus Eaters was the first time he'd come back. And then it was really nice to work side by side again on Cordelia, you know? And that's the kind of, that's the way that I've always liked to work. I like to kind of develop and nurture relationships and then re-collaborate over and over.
Yeah.
And Adrian, I think, the director had worked with Johnny before as well. So it's great.
That's so beautiful. And then as you started to, get shot out of the cannon, like justifiably so, do you feel like you find yourself interested in acquiring the rights to books, or do you find it more interesting to write your own, you know, personal screenplays?
So far, I've just been really interested in original pieces.
I love that.
Yeah, but then I've always, like, for years I've been trying to develop things, about people from history, historical pieces. With Screen Ireland, I've been developing story of Lucia Joyce for about 8 years.
Wow.
With Alexander McGuinness, who wrote and directed Lotus Theatres that I did with Johnny Flynn. And it's, it's complicated, because when you're trying to write a story or make a film about someone from history, it's about how you showcase them, about how you represent them, especially if you're playing them. I seem to have played and portrayed a number of people who existed historically, and that's I find it quite an undertaking. There's a lot more responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And how tough was it doing I know it was probably in the first act of the film, but the twin thing, was that tough, building two different characters?
I found it a dream.
Yeah, I feel like it would be.
At first, the prospect was daunting, but the doing of it was just a joy. I really did, because a lot of the things I get very bogged down in detail, and I mainly I needed to know that it was going to be convincing, rather than like a parody of a twin,
Yeah, of course.
But once I felt confident enough that it was going to work, then it was just a joy. I mean, we actually shot a lot more than is in the actual film. Like, the twin features a lot more in what we shot, and then we had they had to be quite brutal with the edit of it. But yeah, it was really funny, because I've always believed in sort of being an actor, of just being truthful. And then I've become much more fascinated with craft, about literally being quite chameleonic, in terms of the work I do. And even with Cordelia, like, I like the fact that she's this kind of like little bird-like sprightly thing in the beginning.
Yeah.
And she has a kind of metamorphosis where she kind of becomes her twin later on. I shouldn't talk about too much, but as an actor, it was.
Well, the movie's out in the UK at least, right?
Next month. Oh no, October.
October. Okay, sorry. Well, yeah, it's a very interesting movie. We didn't give any spoilers away. But
I don't think it is a spoiler to give away.
But I'm curious, when you're doing such amazing work, at any point in your career, did you ever decide, because like, I think I spoke about this with Daisy Edgar Jones, or it was Paul that said this, but like, in America, acting coaches are a really prevalent thing. Even like, I don't want to name drop, but some of the, top A-list actors I know, I can say Leonardo DiCaprio, because he's been public about it, still work with acting coaches. Is that something that just doesn't really exist over there?
No, I think it does. I've just never done it.
Okay, got it.
Simply, like, yeah, I mean, maybe I should. Maybe I could improve.
No, you're doing great work. They don't, Daisy and, they said they don't either. So I'm just so amazed because.
Yeah, I know I think it's more common in the States. Yeah, I know a lot of European actors, and they've never done it, like French and German. It's not a thing, really. Yeah, I've never done it. I mean, the only thing I ever really, I believe in being self-taught and schooling, and I work really hard to study. Like, accents are a big thing. Like, I've acted in different languages before and things like that, so it takes a lot of work.
That you've spoken or have learned phonetically?
I've spoken. So I did quite a large-ish film that was, we ended up shooting in English, but I had to screen test in German. And so my German is reasonably good. I grew up in Germany, but to speak as well as you speak English and be convincingly native is really tricky. You know, you sort of, it's like you lose one gradient of nuance as an actor.
Yeah.
And so that was tough, but then they ended up shooting in English, so it's fun. But I was excited by the challenge of doing that, you know, and I really admire actors who are multilingual and can act, like Kristen Scott Thomas.
Yeah.
And
So
you know,
great.
yeah, and there's so many now because there's so many European co-productions and multilingual films.
Yeah.
I really admire that. I mean, I think, you know, the South American community, you know, films are often multilingual as well, right?
Well, yeah, and as Netflix and Amazon have kind of moved there to develop their own regional content, I think that's really helped as well.
Yeah.
And I should talk to me about this film that you've been shooting for the last 6 months, or can you not say much? The one you started in November.
Oh no, I seem to have been on a couple of things. So I did a film in Belfast called Black Medicine, and so I mean, they kind of said it's a bit like you were never really here as a female in Belfast.
Oh, I love Lynn Ramsey, so that's amazing.
Me too.
Yeah.
Gosh. So the other cast, like Orla Brady, and then a little girl called Amy Beth McNulty, who's Anne with an
Is
E.
that Dominic or never mind?
No.
Yeah.
So that, and then I went straight on in January. So it was all Belfast based. It seemed to be. Went straight on then to a sci-fi called Zone 414 with Guy Pearce.
Yeah. How is it acting in that world? Is that challenging for you with the green screen and the?
Oh, I love it. I mean,
you do?
Yeah. No. You know, my favorite film of all time is Terminator 2.
Mine too. Oh man, Eddie Furlong. Like, oh, he should have had such a big career.
I know, but you know, after that, like, so was it American Heart?
American History X.
American History X. American
Heart, Pecker. Yeah, Pecker. Yeah. Oh man. Someday when we grab coffee, I'll have to tell you some Eddie Furlong stories, but that's for another. Yeah.
But I bet. Have you seen Pet Sematary too?
No, actually I haven't. Is it campy?
Yeah, it's dreadful, but it's hilarious.
I'll have to see it. That's amazing. And so then, talk to me.
Yeah, no, but I really, really love sci-fi obsessively.
And then, you know, like, you know, we talked earlier about Brit Marlings and things like this. As you've had these credits, has it been tricky finding financing for your own films, or is that something that you've been able to do because you've proven yourself and you have the credentials?
Well, the feature that I'm about to direct is my first feature. I've made 2 shorts. I think I've been quite lucky because of the films that I've been in, because a lot of them have been soft finance, which is government fund, whether it be BFI or Screen Ireland have always been very supportive of me, in Northern Ireland Screen. They kind of, because I've been in lots of their films and I've been developing things with them as a writer, they've been very supportive, especially now with, you know, they're trying to really support women filmmakers.
Yeah.
And I was kind of in the correct position to do it. And you really much have to prove yourself and work your way up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I have to do the short film at a certain budget and then the next one at a certain budget. And I made a short film that was part of a project called The Uncertain Kingdom that is now on BFI Player. And so that was a project where in the UK last year, where they asked 20 filmmakers to make a short on their projections of 2019, 2020.
Wow.
And so I made one that was kind of like, sort of, Brit Marling's a very good reference actually, because I really loved Another Earth.
Yeah, me too.
And, you know, then going on to the OA and everything, like, I really love what she does and shifting hats and seats, the way she works. I really admire her. Amy Seimetz is another one, you know, Caitlin Shields, that kind of group is who I've really, really always admired. Like, I'm sure you know Ty West.
Yeah.
So I met Ty many, many years ago, and you know, they all came from that kind of Ty West group. They were the first lot on South by Southwest. And some of them, you know, have done really interesting work. And even Amy Steinmetz's film is just about to come out.
Okay.
Is it? But
Even
like, sorry?
I was gonna say even with the pandemic or
Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
about to release.
Okay.
But so sorry, I distracted. But I've gotten a lot of support from Screen Ireland because of the sort of, I guess, actor I've been and now filmmaker. But it's, you know, it's very hard to get funding, and I think a lot of people pursue private equity, and then, you know, you've got to go a whole different path, which is casting that brings finance and
Yeah.
presets and all
And then
that
you
stuff.
got people breathing down your neck creatively, and it's just not a fun experience.
No, and I think often, I mean, I've been in some of those films, and it's very hard for those films to have a good life
Yeah.
beyond streaming. They tend to not really have very good festival runs, but you know, there may not be no festivals in the future.
Yeah, who knows? You know, I think, you know, once again, it's a big question mark, but
Yeah.
you know, let's say on the opposite, can you give us, you know, maybe a little plot line about your film that you're about to shoot?
Um, yes. It is about, I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, it's about the gradients of masculinity versus the core inner male, but the actual narrative is a man who grows up in London, and he comes back to find his core roots in Ireland, going back to the bog from which he sprung, and
Wow.
an entangled relationship with a young boy. I don't know. I mean, I should have my elevator pitch better, but
No, I love that. That was perfect. And you,
it's like environmental sci-fi.
amazing. So it's like Brit Marling's The East or whatever.
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So then, can you give us a clue about what else is next for you, or do you not know with
Well,
the pandemic?
so there's a couple of things. Like there was a few things that were meant to come out, you know, and so now they'll be coming out later.
Yeah.
During this is something that's quite interesting. During lockdown, I shot a Zoom show, which was
Wow.
interesting. A very good friend and someone I write with is called Dolly Wells. She was in I mean, what she been? She did a show with Emily Mortimer called Doll and M. She was in
Yeah.
the drama.
Yeah.
So she directed like half-hour comedy pilot with myself and Brian Cox and Clay Spang, and that was a really interesting experience. So that will be going to series. I can't say
Wow.
what's yet, but that's
Brian
yeah.
Cox is going to be doing 2 shows. Of course he is.
I know. I mean, what's
Yeah.
better than Succession, you know?
Yeah.
But
Oh, so good. But 2 final questions for you. You know, one, you know, I don't mean for it to sound bleak, but hopefully you won't interpret it this way. What's keeping you inspired right now?
well, I'm pretty busy trying to get a film made.
Oh, so you're right. You're
Yeah,
answering emails and you
no,
know, yeah.
it's actually it's been a good time to be in prep, you know, assuming and hoping that we're allowed to continue on. But yeah, no, I've been pretty busy in this lockdown period.
That's
Took
so good.
adjusting, but yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. And then this one is very light. For all the budding filmmakers, actors out there abroad or in the US or anywhere in the world, any words of wisdom, advice for them?
Um, um,
Writers, cinematographers, it's not just actors, sorry.
yeah. I mean, I really believe in I'm not going to be silly and poetic here, but really the profound beauty in the artistry of cinema and filmmaking and collaboration. And I don't believe in, I've never really seen it as being the word making it
Yeah.
doesn't really have any meaning to me. I mean, I think that's why we reference the film or the filmmakers that we talked about earlier, like Caitlin Shields and Amy Steinmetz, is you can make an extraordinary piece of work with your friends in a room.
Yeah.
And I think especially this time of lockdown, all that has made people be resourceful and creative that way.
Yeah.
And then I think just pick up a camera or whatever it is that floats your boat and make something.
Oh, I love that. Well, Antonia Campbell-Hughes, like I had so much fun with you, and I would
I
love to
like
do this again when your film comes out or whenever the next project comes out.
that.
And
Lovely.
I can't wait to see how this film is going to turn out that you're about to shoot. You're gonna crush it. I'm sending you nothing but love, and let's do this again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so much love. Okay.
You too.
All
Bye-bye.
right.